Good morning to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to express our views on this interesting topic, ensuring quality, a key element in analytical and medical laboratories. My colleague, Mrs. Sappho Michael, is a molecular and human reproductive biologist working at the blood establishment in the Nicosia General Hospital. Now, what we are to present does not cover in detail medical labs, bearing in mind that the relevant standards for them, ISO 15189, is under revision, and we'll speak in more detail about this in 1.5 years from now. Now, some definitions are useful coming from ISO 9000. Quality is the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of an object fulfills requirements. And what is an object? An object is anything, product, service, process, person, organization, system, resource. And the requirement is the need or expectation that is stated, generally implied, or obligatory. Now, quality refers to the overall service provided by a lab in this case. It is governed by policies and procedures addressing both management and technical issues related to the operation of the laboratory. Management issues may include time schedules, agreements, and contract reviews, communication with customer or user of the results, handling of complaints, management of non-conformities, consideration of risks and opportunities, etc. In the case of medical laboratories, all these aspects may be even more important. Now, let's see this diagram about the services provided. In the case of analytical laboratories with 17025 applying, we have testing, we have sampling associated with subsequent testing, and opinions and interpretations. In medical laboratories, the terminology is slightly different. We have examinations of materials derived from human body, primary sample collection, and professional judgment, which has to undergo regulations and professional guidelines in the country. How can laboratories document competence? Through compliance with the requirements of 17025 or 15189 as appropriate. Now, the laboratory anyway can itself state compliance. It can indeed address all requirements. However, this is not adequate. An official assessment is required to confirm this compliance. Thus, the competence of the laboratory to meet the needs of the customer and all the legislation. And here is accreditation, which is an objective evidence for competence, which fulfills this task. We have the two standards as mentioned, which you can see refer to competence and quality and competence. These are the basis for the assessment towards accreditation. However, they don't refer to accreditation. They just put requirements for this task, quality and competence. Even non-accredited laboratories may fully comply with this standard, one of these standards, which can conventionally be mentioned as accreditation standard in quotation marks due to the fact that they don't refer to accreditation, but they are used for it. Now, further to one of these two accreditation standards, the laboratory needs the support provided by other documents originated from various organizations. These can be standards meeting the specific needs in a particular field, guides, documents by EA and ILAC, either mandatories or guidelines, explanatory documents by the national accreditation body. And also, here we have Eurachem, SciTac, Eurolab, Nordtest, and other organizations, BIPM, OML, and these two referring to clinical medical laboratories, that is the European Federation of Laboratory Medicine and the International Federation of Clinical Chemistry. Now, yesterday, Pavel and Isabel referred to the new aspects included in 17025. Let's summarize them. It's risk-based thinking, uncertainty from sampling, use of a decision rule, metrological traceability addressed in more detail, control of data and information management, and impartiality and liability. Here we have a leaflet by Eurachem that was prepared soon after the publication of 17025, and this is the guide reflecting the needs of the previous version, and now it's under revision to address the additional needs. Now, the user of the results, the customer receives a test report or examination report, as mentioned in the case of medical labs. For sure, the information provided therein has to be expressed accurately, clearly, and unambiguously. This is the wording by the standards. Additional requirements can be put by the customer, the legislation, or the market, in the case of analytical laboratories, or in medical laboratories by the patient or the requesting physician, or even the specific instructions related to the examination procedure. Any other requirements referring to the overall service provided have to be reviewed and agreed or communicated. Let's have a look at this test report. The accreditation body logo appears here in case the laboratory is accredited with the number of the accreditation certificate. The results from the various methods have to be marked in case these are included in the accreditation scope. Further to this, and depending on the specific requirements of these two standards, as applicable in each case, we have measurement uncertainty, statements of conformity, opinions and interpretations, or professional judgment. Now, these three, among others, publications from the EA are relevant. Here we have the assessment and accreditation of opinions and interpretations. This is a new aspect in the 17025. So this is why the document informative is recent. Another recent document is a revision of an older one referring to the use of accreditation logos and other claims for accreditation. And there is also this text, which is mandatory as that one, M means mandatory, dealing with the accreditation for flexible scopes. Now, in analytical laboratories, the standard specifies that when evaluating measurement uncertainty, all contributions have to be taken into account, including those arising from sampling. And here we have the second edition of a guide of Eurachem SciTech dealing with this aspect with examples. This is not the case in medical laboratories, where the relevant standard clarifies that uncertainty components are those associated with the actual measurement process. This is not expected to be changed in the current revision of the standard. However, this doesn't mean that we disregard the importance of the pre-examination phase, including sampling, for which the standard does specify very detailed requirements. In any case, it is important that the user of the results fully understands the meaning of measurement uncertainty stated on text or examination reports. Measurement uncertainty contributes in the confidence and reliability, and it shall be presented whenever it is relevant to the validity or application of test results, or required by the customer, or it affects conformity to a specification limit. This is the case of 17025. In medical labs, it is stated upon request. The decision rule describes how measurement uncertainty is accounted when reporting statements of conformity, taking into account the level of risk associated with it. This is not required when the decision rule is prescribed by the customer, regulations, or normative documents. A significant change in the philosophy of the standard 17025 comes with the introduction of risk-based thinking. It enhances the sense of quality assurance in the laboratory work and no need for preventive actions, although the substance is served by this thinking. It's integrated throughout the standard with more than 30 references in the text, with emphasis given to impartiality, statements of conformity, management of non-conforming work, and management reviews. Here we have an interesting and very useful comprehensive publication from Eurolab. This is cookbook number 18. This is an extract from this document. The laboratory is expected to make its consideration based on its history, and the correlation of the probability of a risk to occur and its impact. And in cases with risks with high probability and high impact, these for sure have to be given much more emphasis. And these are the ones in red color here, where following the small table, probability goes up and impact goes up to the right. So these are the both high risk and high probability and high impact. Further to this, a SWOT analysis is also a useful tool to analyze strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. In medical labs, the standard refers to risk in a different way. The term risk management is used with reference only to activities which may affect the examination results. It's a short reference within the standard. However, this may change during the coming months under the revision of the standard, which anyway seems that will bring 15189 more closely to 17025. But we have to wait for this. And as we mentioned, 17025 provides a broader consideration to be made by the laboratory. Coming to the selection of methods or examination procedures, the term used in medical labs. In any case, they have to be appropriate, updated, and readily available to the competent personnel. It's preferable that the laboratory uses validated methods, meaning those appearing in standards or documented as reputable. And the laboratory has to verify that it can perform in a similar way. The laboratory needs to validate any non-validated method or modified validated method or method to be used outside its scope. This publication by Eurachem is useful. And all these publications mentioned during this presentation, except standards, are freely available from the relevant websites. Metrological traceability. 17025 refers and specifies that the laboratory shall establish and maintain traceability of its measurement results. There is also an informative annex, Annex A. Calibration shall be provided by competent laboratory, and here reference is made to this document by ILAC, which is compulsory. P stands for compulsory for the accreditation bodies when assessing laboratories. But this is extended in practice to the need of laboratories to be aware of this. Certified reference materials with reference to 17034 for the competence of the reference materials providers, and also direct realization of SI units by comparison with national or international standards. These are the three steps, the three routes to establish and maintain metrological traceability. In medical labs, we have similar requirements, but we have to add that in Europe, further to the requirements of the standard, those specified in the legislative framework for in vitro diagnostics apply as well. For the moment, we have the directive for in vitro diagnostic devices. However, the regulation of 2017 will soon come into force, mainly in 1 year time. Now, laboratory information management systems is the terminology used to cover whatever refers to management of data and information. And this may include both computerized and non-computerized systems, although as the trend is, and the steps included in the provisions of the standard are more applicable to the computerized systems. There is a similar definition in 15189 for information systems. Control of data and information management, some very important parts. Validation for functioning before introduction. Any changes to the system, including software configuration or modification to commercial off-the-shelf software, have to be authorized, documented, and validated before implementation. Safeguard against tampering or loss. Appropriate environment following supplier specification. Conditions safeguarding the accuracy of manual recording and transcription, and protection from unauthorized access. Furthermore, conditions ensuring the integrity of data and information, recording failures, and immediate and corrective actions whenever necessary. All instructions, manual, and reference data have to be readily available to personnel. Calculations and data transfer to be checked in an appropriate and systematic way, and information systems managed or maintained off-site lead to the need that the responsibility of laboratory for ensuring providers or operators compliance with the requirements is important. Commercial off-the-shelf software in general use within its designated application range can be considered to be sufficiently validated, comparing with the steps mentioned in the diagrams earlier. However, changes to the system, as mentioned, have to be authorized, documented, and validated before implementation. So in order to ensure the validity of results, requirements referring to a number of aspects, some of them already briefed, have to be adequately addressed. It's the availability of policies and procedures, documented competence of the personnel, suitability of equipment, adequacy of the environmental conditions, metrological traceability, measurement uncertainty, maintenance of records. Are these adequate? No. Even with all these aspects being systematically and adequately addressed, the validity of results may still be under question. To this end, the laboratory needs to monitor the validity of its results. And here, internal quality control and external quality assessment come. This is here the terminology used in this as titles in the clauses under the two standards. This double task is achieved on one hand with internal quality control, mainly with, but not limited to, the use of reference materials, and external quality assessment with the participation in proficiency testing schemes or other inter-laboratory comparisons. The providers of reference materials and the PT schemes providers have to, when complying with the relevant standard in each case, are considered as competent. And this is to be preferred in the laboratories, otherwise they have themselves to document the competence of the producers and suppliers respectively. Now, the internal quality control may be fulfilled with a number of alternative means as referred to in the standard 17025, and have to be monitored against a plan and which is to be reviewed. Among other means, the use of reference materials, control materials, alternative instrumentation, control charts, replicate retesting, intra-laboratory comparisons are referred to in the standard. In the medical labs, the relevant standard underlines that quality control materials shall react similarly to patient samples, because we have synthetic control materials versus the biological samples of the patient. To this end, the use of pooled samples is a choice to serve the purpose, and this happens in practice efficiently. This is a typical diagram indicating the trends and the big changes through successive measurements of control materials, reference materials, with a central line and 2 or 3 standard deviations in positive and negative, giving the warning limits, the lower warning limit and the upper warning limit, as well as the action limits, lower and upper. This publication by Nordtest is very, very useful to be read, and those of you who haven't checked, have a look, it's very useful. Now, the laboratory, further to internal quality control, has to plan for the frequency and type of PT schemes to participate in. PT providers complying with 17043 are considered competent. And here we have a small sample of publications of Eurachem. Yesterday, Vicky presented a number of them. This is a guide for the selection, and these are 2 of the leaflets, how much and how often. And also here, test a PT scheme for sampling, which comes in more discussion now after the new standard providing for consideration of uncertainty arising from it. Now, with regard to frequency for participation, it's upon the laboratory to document its decision. You all know that this is a point of discussion between laboratories and assessors, but however, it's upon the laboratory to decide and document it and justify it based on the measurement process, the characteristic, the product. And further to this, a series of factors have to be also considered within risk-based thinking. This document by EA gives a guidance with examples, and now it's at the final stage of its revision and will soon be available. The results of the participation in PT schemes provide a very useful feedback for appropriate actions, provided that the provider of PT schemes complies with 17043, thus giving all necessary information to be of use for the laboratory. All personnel authorized for specific tasks should participate according to a plan in rotation in the perspective schemes. And be careful, the surplus of PT items are not to be wasted. They can be used. And here we have a leaflet by Eurachem indicating their use. And also we have here the poor performance in PT schemes and how to be investigated. In medical labs, all necessary equipment and materials, namely reagents, kits, controls, and calibrators, are usually provided by the same supplier, the one of the equipment, where the software is installed. And this means that we have a closed system which needs to be monitored by an external source. Therefore, in the case of medical labs, the need for an external quality assessment is imperative. As a result, the frequency of participation is much higher in medical laboratories compared to the analytical ones. And with this, we conclude our presentation, and I have to thank you for your attention. Thank you.